We have a lot of Californians in here today. And when I moved here 27 years ago from California, apparently, I was from the land of the fruits and the nuts. And there are no fruits and nuts in Delaware, except for here in this room. So it's exciting. I don't even know what a fruit and a nut really is, but apparently I am one. So our theme for 2024 is a grand rising. The theme for June is holy boldness. And our topic for today is radical gratitude. Pam Grout offers us this. Once you can say, this is the best thing to happen to me about everything that happens in your life, you will be aligned with the field of potential. You align with the field of potential by loving everyone, by seeing the face of God in everything, by feeling happy, by being joyful and grateful for everything, no matter what. Instead of letting the apparent reality dictate your feelings, you line up with the field of potential, which knows nothing but love, peace, and perfect contentment. Yes. Let's affirm together. I am free. Oops. Oh, let's affirm something else together.
As I look for the soul magic in every situation, I arrive at deep peace, power, and love.
I must have had last week's. No, I'm not sure. We can affirm this one too, but you don't know what it is, so it's fine. And now I will introduce Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson, who's going to introduce Reverend Patrick to us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have a conversation going on. Getting all set up. Yes. And I know what the secret is, but I'm not going to tell you. So Reverend Dr. Patrick Harbula is near and dear to my heart. I took his class last fall. I've been having major shifts ever since then. And I'm also receiving coaching, so we've gotten to know each other very well, and now that I've gotten to know Karina a little bit better too, I'm just so delighted they're here visiting with us. So let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a spiritual leader, a counselor, and coach for over 35 years. That's about the same time that I've been doing it. Yeah. And reaches hundreds of thousands with his writing and personal and media appearances. He's author of Magic of the Soul, which, by the way, is an amazing book, and it's on sale at the back table on your way out.
I vouch for that. Amazing book.
Amazing book. Magic of the Soul, Applying Spiritual Power to Daily Living, which is also the Centers for Spiritual Living curriculum that's called Journey of the Soul. And the recently released book by St. Martin's Press called Meditation, the Simple and Practical Way, and there are also versions back there in Italian and the British Isles version as well. He's founder of the Living Purpose Institute and creator of Life Coaching Certification Program and the Primal Fire Intensive on Catalina Island. Nice. He was ordained as an independent religious science minister by the late Dr. Earl Barnum in 1985 and affiliated with Centers for Spiritual Living in 2010. He trained for 4 years in spiritual psychology under the late Dr. Vivian King. He is also ordained and recognized as a Doctor of Divinity through the Spiritual Unity Movement, of which he was the president for 12 years. He founded Meditation Magazine. He was formerly director of Sage Publications, a world-renowned social science publisher. And he's available after service to sign books, so as you purchase them, he'll sign them for you. And of course, today, he's speaking on one of the topics that I think is just life-transforming, which is radical gratitude. So let's give him a standing ovation and welcome him.
Yeah, just
Sorry about that.
we got
That
out
was
of the
not the blues.
we got out of the 12-bar blues
my
there.
blues.
All right, start again. Start again. I'll let you.
Just my blues vibe has just gone out the window.
I'll let you find it. Find it, and then I'll join.
I have rock and roll.
Here we go. Here we go. Dun. Wait. Let me give you. Dun 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 dun. Dun.
Thank you.
Give her some more love. Give her some more love.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So happy to be here. So, I have a question for you all. How many here, by a show of hands, have something, anything at all, that you're grateful for? Anyone? Excellent. So I would like to hear, I'm not completely convinced, I want to hear what those things are. Call them out one at a time if you can. What are you grateful for?
Family, marriage.
Family, marriage. Life.
Community.
I knew you wouldn't be that good, so good about that one at a time thing, but it's all good. It's all a mishmash. It's fantastic. So we're all grateful for something, right? So, what was that? Okay, there you go, right on. Me too. So I'm convinced now that I want to feel even more of it. So I'm going to invite you to stand, and we're going to do something that Dean introduced us into earlier. We are going to yell yes 3 times as we pump our fist into the air. Ready? Yes! 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 Doesn't that feel good?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yes.
All right. So you can have a seat or remain standing or dance in the aisles, whatever will bring you joy today. So, well, I'll tell you what I'm joyful for. I'm joyful to be here. I'm joyful for this You guys are so, I know how lucky you know you are to have this as your senior minister. And Dr. Dan, and really, Sharon, what a powerful voice this woman has. Please give her some more. And the minute I walked in, I felt the love, I felt the joy, I feel a love that has been percolating here and just growing for many, many years. Yes? Yes. I thought so. Okay, so have you ever given a gift to someone and they lit up like the sun with gratitude? Is that not the best feeling, to be the recipient of that kind of gratitude? Doesn't it make you want to give that person more stuff because it feels so good, right? And guess what? The universal presence is the same way. The more we say yes to our good, the more the universal presence wants to throw more good upon us. Yes? Yes. All right. So maybe you've had the opposite experience where you give someone a gift and they get that crooked smile on their face and say, just what I always wanted. Want to give that person more stuff? Not so much. But isn't it the most inspiring thing when we get the gift that we didn't want and yet we still light up like the sun in gratitude? As you said earlier about being grateful for everything, right? Saying yes to everything. So here's another question. How many here have had anything in the last year or so that's been particularly challenging, painful, or difficult? Anyone? Okay, it's almost unanimous again. So of those people who raised your hand, how many of you in retrospect could say you're grateful for the experience? Okay, so you people are crazy. Or fruits and nuts, some people might say. But that's radical gratitude, right? So regular old gratitude is being grateful for what obviously brings us happiness. Radical gratitude is being grateful for the things that challenge us the most, right? So I'll tell you a story about my challenging experience and how The Magic of the Soul became the book that it became. So I started out writing a book called The Magic of the Soul, How to Manifest What You Want in Life. And I thought I was pretty darn good at manifestation because at the time I had a marriage of 13 years, a wonderful marriage. I had a great corporate job with Sage Publications. I was in great physical shape. I was a tennis pro in my 20s. I was a martial artist in my 30s. And a funny thing happened on the way to The Magic of the Soul. Everything fell apart. I became chronically ill, so ill that I would not be able to get out of bed for 2 weeks at a time sometimes. The corporate job went away, the marriage ended, all within a period of about 6 months. Felt like everything that I was identified with on a personal level, on an egoic level, was stripped away. So in trying to heal, I did all the alternative stuff, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, Chinese medicine, everything. I went the traditional route. I went to Mayo Clinic. There was no diagnosis for over 3 years, and I'm continuing to get worse and worse. I was, meditating 3 times a day, doing energy healing, throwing lightning bolts at it. Nothing was changing the. And I finally got to the place, and by the way, a little side note, my father died at 42 of cancer that was not diagnosed for several years. I was 40 years old when all this was happening. So I was starting to see the proverbial writing on the wall, and starting to think, okay, maybe I'm not going to be long for this physical journey on this planet. And so I decided in that moment, and by the way, all along up to this point, I was resisting this experience. How could this happen to me? I've been meditating since I was 18 years old, been in this teaching since I was 23 years old. How could this be happening to me? But I got to the point where I just said to myself, if I am to die from this experience, I am going to use the experience of dying to understand who I am at the deepest level possible as a spiritual being. And guess what happened? I started to heal. But it was not a direct line to healing. It happened cyclically, because what would happen is I would surrender because that was all about embracing what is and surrendering into it. And then I'd start to feel better. And then I'd go out and do something like I used to do, like take a walk. That would put me back in bed again, and then I would resist again, because it felt so good to just have a little bit of energy back, to feel a little bit about how, the energy that I used to feel. And so then I would remember, after resisting, oh yeah, it was that surrendering thing that got me feeling better. Let's try that again. And so this would happen over and over. It was as though my soul, not as though, it was my soul creating the absolute perfect dynamic experience for me to learn how to be in a relatively consistent state of surrender. So I'd like to ask the question, what is life like for all of us in a consistent state of surrender? Right. You guys are good at this, speaking out stuff. I'd like to tell a story about, well, let me finish that point. So that I stopped writing the book for a while because I thought there's nothing magical in this. And then I realized, oh, guess what? This experience is the magic of the soul. And so I started writing again, but the book took on an entirely different message. And the shift became, yes, it's magical. Yes, it's magical to manifest what we want in life. But what's even more magical is to appreciate what we have. And not only the things that obviously bring us happiness, but especially the things that challenge us the most. So that became the main emphasis of the book. And if it wasn't for that experience of the illness, I know that it wouldn't have become the book it became. It wouldn't have become curriculum for Centers for Spiritual Living. It's, I think, one of my clients in Calgary, Canada, said, it's the only curriculum in our teaching that the author of the book of the curriculum is still alive today. And I was thinking about it, I thought, oh no, there's Practical Mysticism by Carolyn Miss. She's still alive and well. So I'd like to give you a quote from Suzanne Summers. People remember Suzanne Summers? Okay. Three's Company. And by the way, when I was watching Three's Company at 16 years old, I never would have thought that I would someday be quoting her at a Center for Spiritual Living without her wisdom. Not while I was watching the show. So Three's Company and later Phi Master. But she had a home in Malibu. In one of our many fires that we had out there, hers was one of the homes that burned down. So she's standing in front of the smoldering ashes of her home, being interviewed by the press. And they asked her, how do you feel in this moment? And her instant reply was, I know something good will come from this. Can you feel the power of that? So look, as people on a spiritual path, we can always look back in retrospect and see, oh, that's why that happened. That's what caused me to grow the most. But what happens when something challenging comes up in the moment? Do we say, oh, good, this is a blessing? Usually not. We usually resist. And the thing that has occurred to me, the phrase that I say over and over all week long, coaching ceremonies and workshops, classes, is whatever we resist not only persists but magnifies. Whatever we embrace becomes our ally, our teacher, and our healer.
I thought you were going to quote Star Trek. Resistance is futile.
I didn't know that. I remember that one. I will from now on, though. I'll give you a quote from my book. And by the way, you got to know that something good came from that for Suzanne Summers. Something would have come eventually anyway, but she had to realize it sooner because she was open to it. She was inviting that good to come in the moment. So that's what this teaching is all about, is rather than wait for down the line to see what the magic is. It's looking for the magic in each and every situation, right? So here's the quote from the book. When we are in the experience of appreciating the sacredness in life, we open to a world of unlimited possibilities. Because we are alert to the magic, we notice opportunities that we might otherwise miss. Life becomes filled with a deeper level of peace and meaning as we recognize every experience as magical. and know that each experience leads us to an ever-increasing expression of soul energy. If or when we are operating from the perspective of our soul, our timeless, infinite existence, we see the larger picture. Asking what there is to be grateful for in any circumstance is an entrance into the sacred. And I ask you intuitively, isn't this state of surrender, the state of seeing the larger picture, kind of the prerequisite for enlightenment, right? And I think all of our most revered spiritual teachers and authors are saying the same thing in different ways, right? Eckhart Tolle says, give up resistance to what is. Byron Katie, fans him? Says, love everything. 1,000 names for joy. Everything can be defined as joy. August Gold, in her book, The Prayer Chest, says, invite everything. Robert Scheinfeld, in Busting Loose from the Money Game, says, appreciate everything. I say, in the Magic of Soul, look for the magic in every experience. And, in our teaching, there's a disconnect that sometimes happens. It isn't taught this way anymore, but it used to be when I was in training in 1980. Is, when something bad happens, it's only bad because we're judging it that way, we're seeing it through that limited perspective, is, someone says to you, well, what was the wrong consciousness that created this? And doesn't that make you feel instantly better? Not? When we say that to ourselves, what was the wrong thing that attracted this to me, right? And we don't teach it that way, but it still shows up in subtle ways, right? People think it a lot, I sense. The better question to ask is this. This is the question that aligns us with our soul potential. It's what is the greater freedom, joy, love, any spiritual quality that wants to emerge from this situation? Doesn't that feel better? So now we're looking for the magic in this situation. So let's put up that slide with Pam Brown. The same quote you had up earlier. Isn't that a miracle? Once you can say, this is the best thing to happen to me about everything that happens in your life, you'll be aligned with the FT. You align with the FT by loving everyone, by seeing the face of God in everything, by feeling happy, being joyful, and grateful for everything, no matter what. Instead of letting the apparent reality dictate your feelings, you line up with the FT, which knows nothing but love, peace, perfect contentment. Let's take a deep breath. Love, peace, and perfect contentment. So what about when we're having a really bad day? I'm going to quote somebody that I worked for. This guy from New York was a really gruff guy. I had a string of tennis rackets in the tennis shop in my early 20s. He walked up to me one time with a completely straight face and said, you know what? No matter how bad things get, it can always get worse. So next slide, please. So, for all who may be having a bad day, it can always be worse. So there's different ways of looking at this, right? So Robert Scheinfeld, in Busting Loose from the Money Game, the book that the class that we're starting tomorrow, said this. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you, Dan. When you attain the consciousness that realizes that it's no better to have $1 million than it is to owe $1 million, then you'll have the consciousness that can create whatever you want with a snap of your fingers. That's kind of counterintuitive, right? I see heads nodded. How could that be so? Because, I'll tell you how Robert Scheinfeld describes it. He says that if I'm saying one thing, this is a new idea. This is basic Buddhism, all right? If I'm saying one thing in the world of form is better than another thing in the world of form, what I'm saying is that the world of form has power over my inner experience. And that makes me kind of powerless, right? If I'm saying that one thing in the world of form is better than another thing in the world of form, I'm then subtly saying that the world of form has power over how I feel inside. Okay? But when I realize the only thing that is important is how I feel inside, instead of letting the apparent reality, like Pam Grubb said, dictate my feelings, right? I just recognize as long as I feel prosperous inside, as long as I feel joyful inside, as long as I feel love inside, the world of form will take care of itself. It's always an inside-out game. But even religious scientists, we forget that, right? When something happens that we don't like, we want to treat it away right away, right? And by the way, that's second stage. I don't want to get into this whole thing, but second stage consciousness. In the 4 stages of consciousness, the third stage is, well, I'll go through them quickly. First stage is life happens to me, victim consciousness. Second stage is life happens by me. I start to learn that, oh, my consciousness, my thinking can actually affect things. But then what often happens to people who come into teaching is they start manifesting things right away. Parking spots, and better relationships, and better finances. And then all of a sudden something happens that they don't like. And they say, oh, it's not working anymore. So they either then give up and decide, oh, it works for other people, not for me, or it works some of the time. Or they move into stage 3, which is life happens through me. Now I realize there's a higher principle that's going on. That if I don't like what I'm seeing, there's a higher purpose for it. Now I'm cooperating. Now I'm creating alignment between my soul intention and my personal self. And then stage 4 is life happens as me. When I recognize in those deep moments of meditation or mystical consciousness that I am the creative process. I am spirit. I used to say, because I'm an introvert by nature, by the way. And if you want afterwards to compare your childhood introversion stories, I'll probably win. But I used to say that when I hit the stage, I just surrender and spirit speaks through me. But now what I realize is even more accurate, is that when I hit the stage, when I'm in service, I am spirit speaking through Patrick. That's the truth. Every one of you is spirit speaking, expressing through your personal self. Yes? Yes! I'll give you one more quote from a client of mine who I wanted him to embody this understanding because he was a really resistant client. So I asked him to come up with a quote along these lines. And let's see if I can remember it. He said, your challenging experiences are the manure for your blossoming power. Right, kind of like that last slide. So let's see. I think I will, oh, I know, I'm going to tell you a story. We do these primal fire spiritual awakening retreats. We've done them all over. I did them for 5 years, 10 years in Canada, 5 years in Saskatchewan. And so we're preparing, it was the first time I was doing the retreat in this particular location with a client friend of mine, Carol Marriott, who still has a equine assisted learning facility, which is a farm, fancy name for a farm with some horses on it, but very special horses who have been trained to teach us about authenticity, right? Because they're very sensitive. And so we're preparing for the retreat, and Carol asked me and Kate, this amazing, she's a doctor who became a woofer, going around the world. Anyone know what a woofer is? Right? Workers on organic farms just travel around and work for room and board. And she had a great sense of humor. So Carol asked us to go into the barn to clean things up. So we're baling hay into this. We remove these slabs and there's a big pit in the ground. And we're baling hay in there. And Carol said, "Be careful, you don't want to fall in there, because apparently there were pigs in there at one point, and that's where their excrement would go." TMI, more information you need. So we're doing that, and so baling this hay in there, and I'm like kind of pushing it down, stepping on it to compact it down. And as I said, Carol said, "Be careful." And so I thought, I'm an athlete, I got this covered, right? And so then I moved over to another spot that wasn't as compact, and so I went from 6 feet 1 to in a nanosecond. I didn't fall in, but I kind of fell backwards on my back. So this is how Kate described it later. She said, "So here I am, baling hay with this famous author, and he just did something really dumb, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what he's going to say. So I'll preface this with, you remember that the old movies with Peter Sellers, the Pink Panther, bungling Inspector Clouseau. So I stood up, I turned around, and I said, every move I make is perfectly planned. And we laughed for a half an hour without stopping. Our jaws were aching, our stomachs were cramped, and you know, that's the truth of it, is that every move we make is perfectly planned, because every move we make is perfectly planned by our expanded soul self, right? So we can't do anything wrong. I once did this, I once was sharing this story up in Northern California, and a woman came up afterwards. I was signing books, and she came up and she said, I just spilled coffee over my new dress, and I felt myself, my blood started to boil and started to get angry, and I remembered, oh, every move I make is perfectly planned. She started laughing, and that is a spiritual practice, by the way. Anytime we can laugh at ourselves, then we're aligned with our soul as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about the workshop we're doing today called The Joy Factor, Life of Infinite Freedom. So one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to show you a way that something that sounds very impractical is the most practical thing that we can do in life. And that is wake up in the morning and ask what will bring me the most joy to do today, and then go do that. It might sound impractical, but again, it's the most practical thing one can do for your life. And I'll explain it in a way where it will make perfect sense. We're also going to do a practice that is the most important work that I do with people about how to shift from a negative mindset to a positive mindset in a nanosecond. Okay? And one thing I'll say just very briefly is, anytime we do any spiritual practice that brings us into the positive, we must be careful that we're not doing a spiritual bypass and repressing emotion. Okay? And I'll talk about that in the workshop as well. Play shop, if you don't have plans, please join us, because I know that people just walk out like we're walking on air. We'll have an amazing interactive group experience. If you do have plans, change them. If you absolutely can't change them, sign up on our mailing list, and next time we're in the area, we'll let you know. So I'm going to tell you one or two more quick stories. Anything else I want to say about the class tomorrow? I gave you that quote at the beginning, so you got that. I gave you a couple quotes. So there's two brothers, and one of them, Bob, is a cat lover. He has a beloved cat named Perky, and his brother Ed hates cats. Bob's going away on a little trip, and he thinks, where am I going to leave my cat? I can leave my cat with Ed, but it hates cats. But on the other hand, he's been taking care of our elderly mother for many years, and he's doing a great job with her. So you know this one, don't you? So he's smiling all over. So I guess if I can trust my mother with Bob, I ought to be able to trust my cat with Bob. So he drops the cat off with Bob, goes away on his trip, comes back a couple weeks later, and calls Bob up right away and says, hey brother, how you doing, and how's my beloved Perky doing? Bob says, well, I got to tell you, brother, I got some bad news for you. Perky died. Oh, Mom's calling, got to go quick. And Bob is just so distraught out of grief for the loss of his cat. And not only the loss of his cat, but the really callous way in which his brother Ed gave him the news. So he grieves the loss, and a couple days later he calls up Ed and he says, brother, I got to tell you, it really hurt my feelings how uncaring a way that you gave me the news about Perky. And Ed said, well, I don't know what to say. Your cat's dead. What else can I say? And Bob says, well, look, you could have given me the news gently. You could have broken it to me gradually. When I called up, you could have said, well, Perky's up on the roof playing. And then when you could have called me up and you could have said, Perky fell off the roof and And, we think he's going to make it, right? But we're a little concerned. And then when I came to pick him up in person, he could have told me, we did everything we could, but Frankie didn't make it, brother. I'm sorry. And Bob says, and Ed says, okay, I guess you're right, brother. I apologize. I could have been more compassionate. So Bob says, well, thank you, brother. And by the way, how's Mom doing? And Ed says, Mom's up on the plane. So sometimes we're like Bob, where we don't want to hear the bad news, right? As opposed to embracing it. So one final story. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything here. So I'll just say that this is a short one. I was speaking at a Silmar, our annual conference one year, and it was right after the Magic of the Soul had come out, and people were teaching it all over the country and continent. And people were coming up to me and thanking me, practitioners and ministers and congregants. And so the best compliment I ever got was from a very respected minister in our movement. She came up to me, she put her hands on my shoulder, looked me in the eyes, and she said, I gotta thank you for writing this book. I was in the third week of teaching it, and it was the part about loving ourselves unconditionally. Right? Not only because of our magnificence, but because of our humanness. And she said, if it was not for that synchronicity, she said, I was just diagnosed with breast cancer while I was teaching that. And if not for that synchronicity, I would have judged myself for attracting this illness. In fact, I would have beat myself up a little more. And she said, but because I was embracing myself and my potential for having this experience, I know that I healed faster and more completely than if I would have been judging myself. So that's the power of letting go and trusting. Opposite of worry, which we worry as human beings, is trust. That's what we're going to do in the workshop too, end of class, is move from worry to trust. So finally, the most important principle in our teaching and any teaching is self-love. This phrasing came to me not long ago, is that when I love myself unconditionally, as I am, what I realize is I am not myself. I am in fact the self. I am in fact pure love. I love you. Thank you.